Hello, I'm Jeff Jones, Fostrick Software's Territory Director for EMEA. A while ago, I wrote a blog based on different use cases for admin by request called Privileged Access Management. Just got personal. And this blog really talked about the most common types of use case that we have discovered when talking to customers. And I highlighted 5 of those common use cases. So in this webinar, I'm going to be covering the first one in that blog, which was called POP. And the use case of POP is, as mentioned in the blog, I think one of the most common use cases out there, and actually also one of the most disruptive for organizations. So what POP is basically you have likely successfully managed to revoke admin rights from your organization. And after doing so, the users will time to time come up against situations where they need to install updates, install applications, perhaps applications that haven't been packaged yet via your MDM system, or maybe they need to launch applications as admin in order to make them work functionality, like like a SD card formatter, for example. So without admin rights, these users now need and depend on a help desk team to essentially send that request over to help desk, and then someone on the help desk team would then need to figure out a way of enabling that user to install that application or launch that application with sufficient privileges. And these situations generally kind of occur randomly. It's always something different. They're always generally urgent because there's something that is needed for now, maybe for a meeting or for a project or for a customer. And that puts a lot of pressure on the help desk team and disrupts their working day too. So POP is really all about these requests kind of popping up all over the place. And the kind of use scenario for admin by request has a particular configuration that handles this very nicely. So I just thought I would show you, how to configure a use case like this in admin by request. So I thought it'd be a good idea to start off with an endpoint that has admin by request installed. And here I'm using version 8. And I have no admin rights on this endpoint at all. And we can just check that by perhaps elevating Notepad++, and you'll get the UAC prompt. And I don't have any rights to launch that application. So over in the subsettings, I have a few here, and the one I'm going to use for this webinar is going to be the users one. So if I go into here, I've scoped the subsetting for these 2 groups, which my users are a member of. So I'll go to authorization, and this tab is the sort of business tab when it comes to deciding which type of elevation mode we're going to enable on this endpoint. And the POP use case scenario uses the left-hand side one, which is run as admin. So we could enable this, but simply enabling run as admin like this is going to allow the user in this subsetting to essentially elevate anything they like that you've not specified as blocked, but they could elevate on demand automatically and without any sort of manual approval. And if you remember, the POP use case really does require that someone is going to have to look at the request and say, yes, this is okay to elevate, or no, this is not okay to elevate. So we're going to introduce an approval process into the configuration. So if I hit save, this is what I think is a good configuration for the use case. So let's see how that works. If I go onto the endpoint, let's go and elevate that same file. So I'm going to I can go right click on as administrator, or I can just double click on it. So the nice thing here is that users don't need to learn how to use, from a end user point of view, how to use admin by request. They're simply just going about the usual way of working. So they're double clicking on an application that needs elevation, and they get given a form like so. And I can simply just type out on the form, I need to install Notepad++. Is that okay? And then I just hit OK. And then I get a message saying that the request has been sent. So I can now hit OK. And that request now goes off to the designated help desk department that is looking after the users in my subsetting configuration. So that request will appear in a number of places depending on the configuration. So first of all, it'll go into the request area in the portal. It's possible that you've got the mobile app configured. So you'll see the mobile app, the notification will appear there. You might also have got perhaps the ServiceNow integration, Slack or Teams, or any other custom integration that you've sort of developed with our API using REST. So all these different ways you can get notifications of a request to the place you want it to appear. Let's go back to the request area. So this is what a request looked like. So without admin by request, right now there'd be a kind of ticket on your ticketing system, and there'd need to be some sort of action done to enable this user to run this file. So that may be a remote session, so you have to coordinate that. It may be running some sort of remote script to add them to a group that would take time to run, and possibly also in doing, adding them to the local admin group, you're giving them kind of keys to the car. So you're not actually totally sure if they're going to elevate what they say they're going to elevate. They could also do a whole lot of other stuff, and likely that would not be audited either. So what we're looking at now is the request, and we can see who has submitted it. We got their phone number, which you can send through or not. It depends on the configuration. We know the computer, we know the application, and we know the vendor and the file. And here is our built-in, it's a checksum reputation service by a company called Meta Defender and OpsWat. And this is built into our product. And so if I hit that clean link, whenever anyone elevates something with admin by request, we perform a checksum lookup, which is essentially just a query that is sent to OpsWat Meta Defender. And that allows us to match that checksum against 20 different AV providers. And that gives us a very good indication of whether or not this executable is safe or not to run. So you can see that it is safe to run. And we also have a link to double check on VirusTotal. And then under that, we have the reason, which is, they want to install Notepad++. So this all sort of checks out. So I have the option, simple option to hit approve or deny. So right now I'm going to hit the approve button. The request then moves from pending to approved. Now approved is essentially approved but not yet used. So this request will stay here for up to 2 weeks until that user decides to execute the application they needed to launch. Now, back on the user side, you're going to get the user will get a notification that their request has been approved. If you denied it, they'll get one saying they've been denied. And the user can now select the yes to launch this application right away or not, and they can hit the no button, and then they can elevate it later on. So let's hit the yes button to launch. So here we have our single sign-on functionality. So what I'll do is I'll just drag over my phone, and you can see this is what the user will get. So they've launched the application, and we've got the MFA mode configured here. And then on my phone, I'll be able to kind of prove that I am me and hit the approve button. Scan my face. There we go. And now you can see that that request is now launched, and I'm running this installer as admin and go through, and that's fantastic. And I can go into the task manager and see that the application is actually running as admin And this is being the runner's admin mode. This is a kind of single process elevation. So the rest of my system here is not elevated, just this single process for installing this particular application is elevated. Now that's the nice thing about runner's admin with approval, is that when the application is approved, only the application that I have requested is then allowed to be approved. So if I tried to elevate any other app in the meantime, I would be put through another approval process, and then I would have to be approved to run that one instead. So going over to the portal, let's have a little look. So if I hit refresh, you'll see that this has now disappeared from approved. And if I go to the audit log, this is now where the request gets moved to. And you can see the user, computer at the time that it's running. And if I break this open, you'll be able to see the details of the user that is executing the elevation, who approved it, how long that request took to approve, and also the reason as well. And you can see also some details here about the file that's being elevated as well. So if I just go and cancel that and hit refresh, you'll see that request is now finished. And you've got that great audit log showing you exactly what happened, that if you're on the help desk scene, that the user was successfully able to elevate that task and perform the action that would previously might have caused a whole load of help desk actions and getting something done in a very stressful sort of situation. That has completely been removed because we have this approval process, and we've dealt with those very disruptive requests for elevation that pop up. And I think the kind of cost of those disturbances to IT teams is probably not entirely known in the organization. It's just dealt with as they come in. But moving over to an approval system like this is going to make an IT department's help desk run a lot more efficiently. So that is the end of the POP use case persona webinar. Thanks for watching, and look out for the next one, which is the second use case, which we call Robo. Thanks a lot.